The mother of all agreements, as the European Commission is calling it, has just economically integrated 2 billion people, and it has left the United States completely out. This did not happen by accident. This is not normal politics. This is the direct consequence of what President Trump said on Fox Business last Thursday, a 12-word sentence that destroyed 77 years of alliance. This did not happen by accident. This is not normal politics. This is the direct consequence of what President Trump said on Fox Business last Thursday, a 12-word sentence that destroyed 77 years of alliance. He said that NATO allies had fallen a bit behind, a bit out of the front lines in Afghanistan. While American soldiers did the fighting, the United Kingdom lost 457 soldiers, Canada lost 158, Germany lost 59, and the President of the United States said they fell behind. The reaction was not a press release. It was a reorganization of the global system. Welcome to the post-NATO world. Welcome to the era of American isolation. The West is not just furious. The West is divorcing. But it is not only the agreement that has Washington in silent panic this morning. It is when it was signed. It is who was excluded. And it is what this triggers. For the first time in decades, the British Prime Minister publicly reprimanded a sitting American president with visceral anger. Sir Keir Starmer called Trump's comments frankly deplorable and insulting. The German Minister of Defense, Boris Pistorius, broke diplomatic protocol. He went on German public broadcaster ARD and demanded an apology live. He said, "It is simply not right. It is disrespectful to speak about the deaths of your allies this way. Claiming otherwise today is simply a lie." Let the gravity of this sink in for a second. A defense minister of a NATO power called the President of the United States a liar on national television without hedging. This is not just hurt feelings. This is the disintegration of trust. The Article 5 guarantee, the promise that an attack on one is an attack on all, depends entirely on the belief that the US respects the sacrifice of its allies. When the President of the United States dismisses the blood spilled by British and German soldiers as falling behind, he is not just being rude, he is telling them that their alliance is worth nothing to him. And the reaction was not just words, it was a realization. Europe realized that the Trump storm was not whether they had to wait out. It was a climate change they had to adapt to. If the US president does not value their blood, he certainly will not protect their borders. That realization accelerated everything. It turned slow negotiations with India into a frantic race. If NATO is broken, and if the transatlantic trade bridge is burning under 25% tariffs on steel and 15% on automobiles, Europe needed a new partner. They looked east, and they found the world's most populous democracy waiting for them. While Washington argued about tariffs, Brussels and New Delhi finalized an agreement that had been negotiated intermittently for nearly 20 years. This is not a minor adjustment. This is a full economic integration of the Eurasian Rim, excluding the United States. Here is the breakdown of the authentic data released this morning. The agreement creates a free trade zone of more than 2 billion people. It eliminates tariffs on 96% of EU products entering India. This is unprecedented. India has historically been one of the most protectionist economies in the world. They did not just open their doors. For Europe, they kicked them down. Let's talk about cars. For decades, if you wanted to sell a German BMW or an Italian Lamborghini in India, you faced a 110% tariff. That is a prohibitive tax that made European cars impossible to sell at scale. Under this agreement, that tariff drops to 10%. This is a gold rush for the German automotive industry. Volkswagen, Mercedes, BMW, which are currently being squeezed by Trump's tariffs in the US market, have effectively traded the declining American consumer for the rising Indian middle class. But it's not just cars, wines and spirits. Indian tariffs of 150%, cut. Machinery, tariffs of 44%, eliminated. Chemicals, tariffs of 22%, eliminated. Pharmaceuticals, eliminated. In return, India gains tariff-free access for 99% of its exports to the EU. Textiles, leather, jewelry, sectors that employ millions of Indians, now have a direct, tax-free pipeline to Paris, Berlin, and Rome. And here is the part no one is noticing. The timing is not coincidence. Just as Indian exporters are facing Trump's new reciprocal tariffs of 25% to 40%, the European door swings wide open. Just as European manufacturers face a 15% barrier in the US, the Indian door swings wide open. This is a classic pincer move. The two largest democracies in the world by population and combined GDP are shielding themselves against the instability of the third. Ursula von der Leyen was blunt in New Delhi today. We are sending a signal to the world that rules-based cooperation still delivers major results. That signal is aimed at one man, Donald Trump. The message is simple. We do not need you to prosper. And this is only the beginning. What I am about to show you in the next minutes about how this soft ban works in practice and what it means for the American economy will not appear in any traditional newspaper. Subscribe to the channel now, because when the next diplomatic bomb explodes, and it will explode in the next 48 hours, you will want to be informed before everyone else. But before we get to the mechanics of the soft ban, there is a detail about the European reaction that turns this from a trade crisis into an existential crisis. The title of this video mentions a ban, a prohibition. Legally, you cannot easily expel the United States from NATO or the WTO. But in geopolitics, you do not need a legal eviction notice. You just need to change the locks. And that is what a soft ban is. A soft ban is when allies stop sharing intelligence because they do not trust your president. A soft ban is when trade routes are redrawn to bypass your ports. A soft ban is when the G7 summit becomes a G6+1, where the real decisions are made in the hallway before the American president arrives. We are watching this happen in real time. Let's look at the concrete numbers, because numbers reveal the true architecture of this divorce. The United Kingdom lost 457 troops in Afghanistan. Canada lost 158. Germany lost 59. Denmark, per capita, suffered some of the highest casualties of the coalition. These were not soldiers guarding the rear. They were in Helmand province. They were in Kandahar. They were dying in the same dust as American Marines. When Trump said they fell a bit behind, he was not just rewriting history, he was spitting on their graves. But wait, it gets worse. Free trade zone, 2 billion people, tariffs eliminated, 96% of EU products, Indian access to the EU, 99% of its products, previous tariff on automobiles, 110%, now 10%, previous tariff on wines, 150%, now eliminated. This is not a normal trade deal. This is the European Union and India building an economic circulatory system that bypasses Washington entirely. And now, here is the part they do not want you to know. The United States withdrew from 66 international organizations in the last year. Tariffs of 41% hitting our closest allies, Europe and India together, $3.2 trillion in projected bilateral trade by 2030. US-Europe trade projected to shrink 15% by 2030 due to the tariff war. Do you see the pattern? While Europe integrates with India, the US is retreating into bizarre isolation. President Trump launched his Peace Council, an alternative international forum that includes Vladimir Putin but excludes traditional Western allies. Let that sink in. The President of the United States created a club that has Russia but not the United Kingdom. Look at the push for strategic autonomy in Europe. For years, strategic autonomy was a buzzword in Brussels. It meant Europe should be able to defend itself without America. It was a dream. Today, it is a survival strategy. The EU-India agreement includes a massive chapter on defense and security. They are not just trading wine and cars. They are discussing maritime security in the Indo-Pacific. They are discussing cybersecurity. They are discussing things they used to discuss with Washington. India is pivoting as well. India was a key member of the Quad, US, India, Japan, Australia, designed to contain China. But with the US becoming unpredictable, imposing tariffs on Indian goods and threatening visas, India is diversifying. They are betting that a partnership with Europe is safer than a marriage to MAGA. Let that sink in for a moment. We are witnessing the reorganization of the global order in real time, and it is happening without the United States in the room. If you are watching this far, you already know more than 99% of people about how this diplomatic crisis is connected to the collapse of American hegemony. But there is much more coming. Click subscribe and turn on the bell, because when the next geopolitical move happens, and it will happen in the coming days, you will want to be warned before everyone else. Now, let me show you exactly what this means for you, the American viewer, and for the global economy. Let's dive into the economic mechanics for a moment, because this is where it becomes truly devastating. President Trump believes tariffs will force companies to return to the US. He calls it the Great Rebuilding. And to be fair, he secured a massive $550 billion investment pledge from Japan in July 2025. But economists warn that these pledges are often paper tigers, promises that evaporate when the economic climate worsens. The reality on the ground is inflation. When you impose a 25% tariff on global imports, prices rise. But the greater danger is market access. American farmers, soybean growers in Iowa, corn growers in Nebraska, depended on export markets. When Europe and India sign an agreement eliminating tariffs between them, American farmers are left outside looking in. A French farmer can now sell wheat to India tax-free. An American farmer has to pay a tariff. Who do you think the Indian buyer will choose? This is called trade diversion, and it is the silent killer of economic superpowers. The EU-India agreement gives European companies a first-mover advantage in the Indian market of 1.45 billion people. When the US wakes up and tries to negotiate its own deal, the shelves will already be stocked with German appliances, French fashion, and Italian food. We are losing the market of the future because we are obsessed with the grievances of the past. By 2030, the EU-India trade corridor is projected to double in volume. Meanwhile, US trade with Europe is projected to shrink 15% due to the ongoing tariff war. You do not lose superpower status in a single battle. You lose because everyone else starts doing business without you. The last time we saw this kind of self-inflicted isolation by a major power was, actually, never on an American scale. But we have historical precedents in other powers that withdrew from the global system. The Soviet Union in the 1980s, Japan after the Napoleonic Wars. History teaches us that economic autarky leads to strategic decline, and now all these separate crises are converging. So, recapping where we stand on this Monday, January 27, 2026. Crisis 1. Trump insults NATO allies, plus dismisses the sacrifice of 457 British, 158 Canadian, 59 German soldiers as a lie. Crisis 2. Europe and India sign the mother of all agreements, plus 2 billion people economically integrated without the US crisis. 3. US withdraws from 66 international organizations, plus creates Peace Council with Putin, but without the UK crisis. 4. 41% tariffs on closest allies, plus Europe retaliates with Indian integration. Crisis. 5. European strategic autonomy, plus defense and security chapter in EU-India deal bypasses NATO. This is not one crisis. It is 5 crises detonating simultaneously. And no one in Washington has a plan to reverse all of them at the same time. But here is what really keeps strategists awake tonight. And we cannot talk about this diplomatic rupture without mentioning the absurd but dangerous Greenland crisis. It sounds like a joke, but it is one of the main drivers of the current NATO fracture. President Trump renewed his interest in buying Greenland from Denmark. When Denmark refused again, tensions escalated. Trump threatened tariffs on Denmark, a NATO ally. This is not just about real estate, it is about the Arctic. As the ice melts, new shipping routes and resources are opening. The US wants control. But by intimidating Denmark, a loyal NATO member, Trump terrified the rest of the Nordic countries. Sweden, Finland, and Norway now see the US not as a protector, but as a predator. This pushed the Nordic bloc deeper into the arms of European Union defense mechanisms and further away from the US-led NATO structure. It is another brick in the wall of isolation. Right now, European capitals are not issuing furious statements. They are making contingency plans. Plans for a world without America at the center. Plans for a NATO without American command. Plans for a global economy where the dollar is not the dominant reserve currency. What does Putin think when he sees this? What does Xi Jinping think? They see a weak American leader. They see a leader who cannot even hold on to his own allies. In authoritarian cultures, power is absolute. The idea that allies could simply build a new economic system that excludes you is unthinkable. They interpret this as American chaos. Democracy does not work. Look at them. They are devouring their own alliances. It emboldens them. It makes threats to Greenland look like empty bluffs. If he cannot stop Europe from divorcing, how will he stop the People's Liberation Army? Power projection depends on stability projection. The EU-India agreement is a giant billboard advertising American instability to the world. This is not speculation. This is not conspiracy theory. This is happening now as you watch, and it will get worse before it gets better. If you are not subscribed yet, subscribe now and turn on notifications, because in the next 24 to 48 hours, we will get Washington's response, likely more tariffs. And when that happens, subscribers will know first. Do not miss out. Now, the conclusion no one wants to face. History will likely look back on January 2026 as the turning point. The moment the Eurasian Rim, Europe and India, decided to join hands and close the gate to Atlantic power. Donald Trump promised to put America first. And, in a way, he succeeded. America is now alone. First in isolation, first in tariffs, but last in the room where the future is being written. The ban is not official. There is no paper expelling the US from NATO. But when your allies build a new global economy that excludes you, when they sign the largest agreements in history without you, when they demand apologies for your insults to their dead soldiers, you have to ask, did we leave them or did they leave us? The EU-India agreement is signed. The ink is dry. The tariffs are up. The walls are high. Welcome to the new world. It is an angry world. And for the first time in a century, America is flying solo. In the coming hours, watch. Washington's response, likely more tariffs, China's reaction, geopolitical opportunity, NATO's next move, possible emergency meeting, and the financial markets on Monday, volatility expected. This is a fast-developing story. The ramifications of the EU-India agreement will take months to fully materialize. But one thing is certain. The world that existed last Friday is not the same world that exists today. The question no one wants to ask: is this reversible? Subscribe to the channel, turn on the bell, and share this video with someone who needs to understand what is really happening to the global order. See you in the next one. If there is still a Western alliance left to analyze, the divorce is final. The countdown to the new world order has begun.